When I was a kid, my grandmother used to talk in platitudes. Simple statements of what I believed were profound truths. You end up where you're headed, she'd say. So you better know where you're going. There's a difference between investing and spending, she told me. You spend for the moment and you invest for the future. And one of my favorites, even to this day, the glass is half full instead of half empty. And with every challenge comes an opportunity. That's a lesson and a piece of advice that's more important today than it's been, well, since she used to say it to me. That's a lesson and a piece of advice that's more important today than it's ever been, well, since my grandmother used to say it. And that's because we're facing a perfect storm of economic and political challenges. And we're forced to confront, perhaps for the first time in my lifetime, a world in which the United States of America is no longer the biggest or the best or maybe even the most interesting game in town. A high school counselor in Colorado produced a video highlighting some of the things we're facing. Did you know, for example, that the #1 English-speaking country in the world is China? That India has more honor students than we have students? That the top 10 jobs this year didn't even exist in 2002? And that today's college graduates will have between 10 and 14 jobs by the time they're 38? Did you know that the first commercial text message was sent in December of 1992? And that the total number of text messages that will be sent today, exceeds the total population of the entire planet? Did you know that if MySpace were a country, it'd be the 5th largest country in the world? And that by next year, 90% of all technology and science graduates will live in Asia? In short, we're living in a world in which Americans are no longer the smartest, the richest, the most powerful, or even the most wired. In fact, Bermuda is the #1 ranked country for broadband penetration. The United States, 19th. And all of that said, Americans are still among the most industrious, ambitious, stubborn, and optimistic people on earth. And that means, just like my grandmother, we recognize that with challenge comes opportunity. And that 2009 may bring us some of the greatest opportunities of our lifetimes. That means it's time for us to stop complaining about what we aren't doing and start doing what we can do. It's time for us to decide once and for all that business as usual will no longer suffice. One of my favorite quotations that didn't come from my grandmother came from somebody who was probably as smart as she is, Albert Einstein. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we use to create them, he said. And he was right. As we rise to the challenges that confront us, as we figure out how to do more with less, as we reclaim our position as the greatest and most productive nation in the world, it's time for new kinds of thinking, not only across the country or across the state, but right here on South Hill. You do end up where you're headed, as my grandma used to say. And if we're as smart and effective as I think we are, we're headed into a future that is as bright, promising, and exciting as our history has always been. We'll just need to work a little harder, think a little bit more creatively, and stay focused on our core mission and our core values, and we'll get there.